Hey, Victoria, it's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite fine, and thank you so very much for being here. Just like I mentioned earlier, I truly appreciate it. And you see, Victoria, oftentimes I love to thank my guests for two things, and I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invest it in yourself. And oftentimes, Victoria, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. I say some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, Victoria, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I use the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Victoria, just recently, I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, which I did, and it wowed me because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches, and not just mangoes now, Victoria. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely moment that day. I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Victoria that you are today, that alone has made it really impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing. Your
Hmm.
insights, your philosophies, the impact your work is having, how you're offering your solutions, these stuffs are amazing. And just before you got the text from me, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from those beautiful things Victoria is doing. Not only me now, but even the audience. And here we are today with the amazing Victoria. And secondly, thank you so very much for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Lisha could do about it. Thank you so much.
Happy to be here.
Beautiful. So let's get started. You see, I'm quite excited to have you on the show today, Victoria, for two reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge now, but the application of it. And you see, Victoria, ever since I realized that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. The second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Victoria on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, Victoria, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Victoria, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Victoria got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Victoria, over to you.
So I'm Dr. Victoria Mattingly. A lot of people call me Dr. V. I have my PhD in organizational psychology, meaning I'm trained in using data and science to improve the human experience in the workplace. I'm a keynote speaker. I speak on topics like allyship and mental health in the workplace. And I'm also a published author. So my first book right here, Inclusalytics, is all about data-driven diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then my next book coming out in August is all about allyship, and it's called Act Like an Ally, Work with an Ally. I got interested in organizational psychology whenever I was working in the service industry, and I thought it was really interesting and sad how we never got any sort of training on how to deal with the stress of being a bartender, a waitress, a manager. And so I've got into my PhD program with the goal of helping to train the world to be more emotionally intelligent and deal with emotional labor. I've since, gotten a lot more specialized in the workplace inclusion area. But I've always been doing learning and development work as well. I feel like training is a great mechanism for behavior change in the workplace. And if we want to have healthy cultures, we need to have positive behaviors. And so that's my philosophy around that.
Beautiful. I got that. And you made use of one of my favorite words, help. And folks who are so concerned about helping people, I count them as very interesting people. So it's so nice to meet you once again. So there was this part you mentioned, organizational psychology. Can you talk to us about that? What does that mean?
Yeah, so as I shared, it's the science of helping improve the human experience in the workplace. And so we study things like hiring, recruiting, leadership, training, motivation in the workplace. So, like a lot of the same topics that you would learn about in a business school, only we're coming at it from a human centered perspective rather than bottom line. What's interesting though is if you take care of your people, you are going to be more successful as a business. You are going to make more money because people are going to stay around longer. They're going to do better work. They're going to be more innovative. And so we definitely do contribute to the bottom line, but that's not our primary focus. Our focus is the human experience in the workplace.
Got that. And I feel like every organization needs your solution because there are a lot of folks in several workplaces who they aren't feeling too good, they're not enjoying what they're doing. So with your solutions now, it'll be very easy to detect stuff like that and solve it. I got that. So, but I'm still curious, all right? So, what sparked your interest for this particular thing that you're doing? When did it all start?
Yeah, so I graduated with my undergrad degree in psychology in 2008. And that was during one of the worst recessions our country's ever faced. And so I was bartending and I was bummed I couldn't, use my psychology degree right away. And I was working in this fancy restaurant in Portland, Oregon. And one day, two IO psychologists walk into my bar and they tell me that they're in town because a current standing hospital hired them because they were worried about losing all their doctors and nurses to a new, shiny new hospital that was opening up down the street. And so they were trying to figure out what can we do to make our employees feel valued and appreciated and just make their lives better so they can stay at this hospital and not move on to the new shiny one that's opening up. And I was like, hold the phone. You're telling me that your job is to figure out how to make the lives for these employees better. The executives are paying you for that and everyone's on board. Everyone is benefiting from this. I'm like, what is this field? Sign me up. And from there, I started volunteering at Portland State in one of the IO psychology labs. I got an internship working with IO psychologists, and then that led me to get my PhD.
Beautiful. So, how has the journey been ever since then? I believe challenges are so inevitable. So, how did you overcome those tough times?
Yeah, so I think one of the most pivotal moments of my career was when I was working at a consulting firm. It was based in New York. My whole team was in New York, but I worked remotely here in Pittsburgh. And I just did not get the support I needed. I didn't know how to ask for the support that I needed. And I ended up waking up earlier and earlier and earlier to stay on top of my work. I ended up burning out. And I always joke because burnout is one of the areas of research and practice that IO psychologists specialize in. And so I always said, I feel like I'm like the medical doctor telling my patients not to smoke while I'm out back smoking a pack a day, getting lung cancer, right? I'm the organizational psychologist that burn out at her job. And so I did the thing you're not supposed to do. I left that organization without having another job lined up. I took the summer off to heal. And then I started my own company. So my own company wouldn't have come to be if it wasn't for that experience. And I've been running Mattingly Solutions for the last 5.5 years.
Wow, amazing. That's very inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, while you were talking earlier, you mentioned inclusion. Okay, so let's talk about workplace inclusion. Why is workplace inclusion important for business?
Yeah, so inclusion, I define it as the behaviors that result in others feeling valued, respected, seen, and heard. And so if we can treat our peers, our subordinates, each other, ourselves in a way that makes us feel valued, respected, seen, and heard, we're going to be more likely to stay at that organization. We're going to feel more inspired to do better work. We're going to take care of each other in a more meaningful way. It's just going to be a better overall workplace experience. You know, people don't like feeling excluded. They don't like feeling devalued, disrespected, unseen, unheard. And so inclusion really, solves those issues, when it comes to making people feel like they truly belong within an organization.
Which is very important. I got that, Dr. V. Thank you. So let's talk about allyship. All right, what is allyship?
So I define allyship as an ongoing partnership between an ally and the individual or the group that they're trying to serve for the greater purpose of fairness and inclusion. And so a few things about that definition. First off, ally is a verb. It's not a noun. It's not who you are, but it's what you do. Secondly, you don't do it alone. You never ally alone. You should always ally in partnership with an individual or the group that you're trying to serve. And that will help you make sure that the actions you take as an ally are actually going to help and support and advocate properly for that individual or group. And then a final piece about allyship is you can't be an ally to someone who's exactly like you. There needs to be some sort of difference. So, for example, you could be a male ally for women. You could be a straight ally for the LGBTQ population. You could be a white ally for people of color. But you can't be an ally if someone's exactly like you, because the beauty of allyship is that you have the ally, someone in the dominant or the in group, and they're leveraging that power, that status, that privilege to help the individual who's not in that in group, who's in the out group, who's in the marginalized group, underrepresented group. And so you need to have that power differential, because by being an ally and leveraging that power, you're actually helping balance the scales in a way that they currently aren't.
Hmm, I think I got that. But how is it different from just having good intentions?
Yeah, so good intentions don't always translate to actionable behavior. Good intentions don't always translate to good outcomes. And so that's why I like to say, allyship's a verb, it's not a noun. Allyship is what you do, not who you are. And so someone can say, oh, I'm an ally, but they don't actually do any of the work. They don't actually partner with the group or the individuals they're trying to serve. That's performative, and that's not good allyship. It's not allyship at all. Allyship really has to do with actions, behaviors, and outcomes, not intentions.
Got that. So how does real, or should I say, okay, real allyship, how does it look like at work?
Yeah, so it could look a number of different ways. A few key allyship behaviors I like to talk about. One is mentoring, so working with someone to share your experience, be a sounding board, be a coach, be a cheerleader. But even more powerful than mentoring is sponsoring. So sponsoring is whenever you leverage maybe it's your leadership status, your in-group status, your reputation, your network, to help actually pull someone up in the organization. So I'm going to bring you to this, networking event. I'm going to introduce you to people. I'm going to talk about you when you're not in the room. I'm going to advocate for you to get a promotion or opportunities that you wouldn't get otherwise. So sponsoring is a really powerful ally action. And then amplification. So whenever someone from a marginalized or underrepresented group speaks up, a lot of time they're not taken as seriously as someone who's from the majority group. And so what you could do as an ally is if, shares something in a meeting, no one pays attention. Someone says the same thing 5 minutes later. Me as an ally could say, yeah, Juan said that 5 minutes ago. Hey, Juan, why don't you explain that a little more? Give us some examples. So I'm amplifying Juan's voice, Juan's perspective, Juan's contributions to make sure that he's getting the credit that he deserves in that meeting.
I got that. I got that. Thank you for explaining it that way. You made it quite easy to understand. So finally, let's talk about your book. Um, what inspired you to write the book? How did you come about with the title?
Yeah, so the inspiration for the book goes all the way back to 2017 when I did my dissertation research. I built a training program for male executives to help them be better allies in the workplace and advance women in leadership initiatives. And what we found is that you can train male executives to be better allies and engage in more allyship behaviors. But I kept thinking about after I did all this work and the study was over, the training was done, I trained Paul, the ally, the executive, to work with, women in his organization to help them advance their career. Now imagine Paul has had Susan as his executive assistant for 10 years, and never once has he asked Susan, how can I help you advance your career? What can I do for you? What barriers can I help you overcome? But then one day after this training, all of a sudden he cares about all those things, and he goes to Susan and asks her all those questions. And then poor Susan's like, where's this coming from? Like, where have you been the last 10 years? And so I keep thinking about Susan and all the other women who, would have leaders that went through this training program, but they didn't have a heads up. They didn't have any guidance, any content, any framework for working with their allies. And so for the book, it's actually 2 books in one. So we have this side, which is act like an ally. And then this is for those who want to be better allies and act like allies. But then you flip it over and it's the second book, which is work with an ally. So it's 2 books in one. And this side is for the Susans in the world, right? So for the people who want to work with allies from some sort of underrepresented or marginalized group, there's lots of books like this out there on how to be a good ally, but there's nothing out there on how to work with an ally. And then as you read the books, they reference each other. So I'll say in the work with an ally book, I'll go, I'm telling allies on page A42 to be courageous. So give them something courageous to do. And then I want them to be like, what are they saying on page A42? And I want them to read the books and have them be like a choose your own adventure sort of experience. And then when you get to the center of the book, it's actually the end of both books. And it says, they might just end up being an ally to you, and you flip it over, you just might end up being an ally to them. And so it gets at that fluidity of allyship because, I think about my former business partner, and she's a Black woman. And when people look at us, they assume, oh, Victoria must be the ally because she's the white woman. And when it comes to racial allyship, that's correct. But there's so many other examples when Certrice has been my ally. So she's my motherhood ally, my mental health ally. She was my grievance ally when my father passed away. And so it really just depends on who's in the in-group at any given time. And that person can then be the ally to the partner. And so this book really shows both sides of that ally-partner relationship.
Beautiful. And I love it. Creativity at its peak. That's amazing. Okay, so to bring this on end, Dr. V, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who like to get your book, reach out to you, or even ask questions, how can that be possible?
Final thought is inclusion and allyship. It's not who you are, it's what you do. And there's so many great resources out there to help us be better allies, more inclusive leaders, just treating each other better. And so my book, it comes out in August. And if you go to mattinglysolutions.com/allyship, there's information on the book. There's the links to pre-order the book, and the link to get the book off of Amazon will be available on that site as well in August. So please check it out. Tell your friends. I always recommend, maybe buying 2 books and giving it to someone that you want to have an ally relationship with. And then you could both read it together and work together to help create a more fair and inclusive world.
Beautiful. I love that. So that's going to be the end of the show, Dr. V. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing this beautiful stuff with us. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you.